It was 9:17 a.m., January 22, 1943. In the ruins of a Japanese bunker on Guadalcanal, a 27-year-old lieutenant from Illinois stared through a scope his fellow officers had mocked for weeks. His target, a Japanese sniper, 87 feet up in a banyan tree, 240 yards away. His weapon? Not a standard-issue military rifle, but a civilian hunting weapon he'd bought with his own money, a weapon his commander had called a toy. His record? Illinois state champion. Confirmed kills? 0. He had one shot to prove that his mail-order rifle wasn't a joke and to change the course of a desperate jungle war. This is the forgotten story of Second Lieutenant John George and the rifle that silenced an entire sniper corps. George's battalion threw itself against Mount Austin on December 17th. What followed was 16 days of sheer hell. The jungle fighting was close, brutal, and chaotic. It was a war of grenades, bayonets, and sudden, violent ambushes at point-blank range. There were no clear sight lines, no long, sweeping fields of fire. It was a meat grinder. The battalion suffered 34 men killed and 279 wounded before they finally wrested control of the western slope on January 2nd. Through all of this, John George's Winchester remained silent. He carried it, but in the dense, close-quarters combat of Mount Austin, the opportunity to use it never presented itself. The other officers' mockery intensified. They called it his mail-order sweetheart. His company commander, Captain Morris, directly ordered him to leave the sporting rifle in his tent and carry a real weapon. George, with the quiet stubbornness of a man who knows his own business, carried it anyway. But the terrain around Point Cruz was different. No large, fixed bunker complexes, just a labyrinth of massive, ancient trees, bangins, and coconuts, some with trunks 8 feet thick, creating a multi-level jungle canopy that reached 90 feet into the sky. It was a sniper's paradise. And the Japanese had 11 of them operating in the Point Cruz groves. These were not just infantrymen with good eyesight. They were trained snipers, equipped with scoped Arisaka Type 99 rifles. They were patient, disciplined, and deadly. They would climb into the trees before dawn and remain there, motionless, all day, waiting for a target to present itself. In just 72 hours, these 11 men sowed terror and inflicted devastating losses. They weren't engaging in large firefights. They were conducting a targeted assassination campaign. On January 19th, a sniper killed Corporal Davis while he was doing something as mundane as filling canteens at a creek. On January 20th, another sniper killed 2 men from L Company during a routine patrol. On January 21st, the toll rose by 3 more. One of them was shot clean through the neck from a tree the patrol had already walked past twice. The sniper had waited with inhuman patience for the perfect moment. The battalion commander was at his wits' end. His men were being picked off faster by snipers than by malaria. He needed a solution. He needed someone who could shoot. And in his desperation, he remembered the lieutenant with the toy rifle. The summons came that night. The commander was blunt. The snipers were crippling his unit's morale and effectiveness. He needed them gone. He fixed George with a hard stare and asked the question that had been hanging in the air for 6 weeks. Can that mail-order rifle of yours actually hit anything? This was George's moment. There was no room for modesty now. He laid out his credentials, not with bravado, but with the cold, hard facts of a technician. Illinois state champion at 1,000 yards. 6-inch groups at 600 with iron sights. With the Lyman Alaskan scope, he could put 5 rounds inside a 4-inch circle at 300 yards. The commander was a practical man. He didn't need more promises. He needed results. He gave George until the next morning to prove it. George spent the night in a state of focused, methodical preparation. He retrieved the wooden crate marked "Fragile" that had finally caught up to him in late December. He had already cleaned the thick, grease-like cosmoline from the ocean voyage out of the rifle, but he did it again. Every component of the Winchester was disassembled, inspected, wiped down, and reassembled. He checked the tightness of every screw on the scope mounts, ensuring not a fraction of an inch of play could spoil his aim. He loaded the magazine, not with standard military ball ammunition, but with the high-quality .30-06 hunting rounds he had personally packed back in Tennessee. This was the final piece of the system, match-grade ammunition for a match-grade rifle. At first light on January 22nd, George moved into position. He chose the ruins of a Japanese bunker his battalion had captured 3 days earlier. It offered a commanding, elevated view of the coconut and banyan groves west of Point Cruz. He went alone. No spotter, no radio man. Just a canteen, 60 rounds of ammunition in stripper clips, and his Winchester. He settled into the rubble, creating a stable rest for the rifle, and began the sniper's true work, waiting. He glassed the trees, the Lyman Alaskan's 2.5x magnification sweeping slowly across the canopy. It wasn't much by modern standards, but it was enough to turn a blur of green into a world of distinct branches and shadows. He filtered out the constant jungle symphony, the shrieking birds, the drone of insects, the far-off thump of artillery, and focused solely on the one thing that didn't belong: movement. At 9:17 a.m., he saw it. A branch moved, against the wind. It was 240 yards away, 87 feet up in the vast, sprawling form of a banyan tree. The Japanese sniper was facing east, his own scope presumably trained on the trail used by George's battalion. He was the hunter, completely unaware that he had now become the hunted. George adjusted his scope, 2 clicks to the right to account for a slight crosswind. He settled the crosshairs on the center mass of the dark shape. The Winchester's trigger, which he had painstakingly adjusted to a glass-smooth 3.5-pound pull during long hours at Camp Perry before the war, now felt like an extension of his own nerve. This was the moment of truth. Was this a tool for sport, or was it a weapon of war? He exhaled slowly, and between heartbeats, he squeezed. The report of the .30-06 was a sharp, unmistakable crack that tore through the morning humidity. The rifle kicked solidly into his shoulder. Through the scope, he saw the target jerk violently and then fall. The body tumbled down through the layers of branches, a horrifying ragdoll, before hitting the ground with a distant, sickening thud near the base of the tree. George didn't celebrate. His training took over. He worked the bolt, the empty brass cartridge spinning away with a metallic ping. He chambered a fresh round and immediately scanned the same tree, then the surrounding trees. Japanese snipers often worked in pairs, a shooter and a spotter. If he had just killed the shooter, the spotter was still out there, and he was now alerted. George methodically searched the canopy. The limited magnification forced patience. At 9:43, he found the second man. A different tree, 60 yards north, lower down at about 50 feet. This soldier was moving, climbing down in a hurry. He'd heard the shot, knew his partner was dead, and was trying to retreat. George led the moving target slightly, breathed, and fired again. The second sniper fell backward, his rifle clattering down through the foliage ahead of his body. 2 shots, 2 kills. The rifle, the scope, the man, the system had worked. Word began to spread through the battalion before George even returned from his position. The men who had scoffed at the deer rifle were now asking, with a new tone of respect, if they could watch him work. George refused. A crowd would only draw attention and counterfire. He was proving that the sniper's greatest weapons were not just his rifle and his aim, but his anonymity and his patience. The Japanese, however, were not fools. After George claimed his 5th sniper by noon, they adapted. They stopped moving during the daylight hours. The afternoon of the 22nd passed with no further contacts. When George returned to headquarters, Captain Morris was waiting. The mockery was gone, replaced by a commander's calculating gaze. The report was simple: 12 rounds fired, 8 confirmed kills. Morris gave him his new orders: be back in position at dawn. The duel intensified on January 23rd. The Japanese now knew they had a dedicated counter-sniper to contend with. The first kill of the day came at 0912, a longer shot at 290 yards, showing the enemy was trying to stay outside what they perceived as his effective range. They were learning, and so was he. Then, at 0957, they escalated. Japanese mortars began walking their fire toward his bunker. They had triangulated his position from his muzzle flash or the sound of his rifle. The first salvo landed 40 yards short, the second 20. George knew the third would be on target. He grabbed the Winchester and ran, sprinting north along the tree line as the third salvo obliterated the bunker he had just vacated. He relocated to a new hide, a fallen log, and continued his work, now with the added awareness that every shot could bring down a storm of high explosives. He killed 2 more that afternoon, bringing his total to 8. The dynamic had fundamentally shifted. This was no longer a one-sided hunt. It was a deadly duel between professionals. That night, George cleaned his rifle again and did the math. 11 snipers. 8 confirmed dead. 3 remained. These 3 would be the most experienced, the most cunning, the ones who had survived this long for a reason. And they now knew his face, his methods, and the unique sound of his weapon. The following morning, January 24th, he changed his tactics. He abandoned his previous positions and chose a new one, a cluster of rocks formerly used as a Marine machine gun nest. It offered a different angle. At 8:17, he spotted what looked like an easy target, a sniper in a palm tree only 190 yards away. But something felt wrong. It was too obvious. A bait. He scanned, and sure enough, found the real threat, a well-concealed sniper in a banyan tree, covering the decoy, waiting for George to take the shot and reveal his position. George turned their trap against them. He fired at the decoy, then immediately swung and fired at the real sniper as he reacted to the first shot. 2 rounds, 2 more kills. But he had revealed his position. He barely escaped a machine gun barrage that chewed apart the rocks where he had been lying. The game of cat and mouse was reaching its climax. 10 snipers were dead. 1 remained. The 11th sniper was the apex predator of this jungle, and he was now hunting George with the same intensity. George found a new hiding spot, a rainwater-filled shell crater. It was miserable, but concealed. As he scanned, he realized his error. The 11th sniper wasn't in the trees. He was on the ground, using the undergrowth for cover, moving with expert skill toward George's last known position. But then George saw the second man. It wasn't one sniper, it was the final 2, working in tandem, one moving, one providing overwatch. George was trapped in his crater, outnumbered and outgunned if it came to a close-quarter fight. He made a decision that defined his coolness under pressure. He submerged himself in the muddy water, leaving only his eyes and the top of his head exposed, and waited. He let the 2 snipers pass his position, their backs now to him. He rose from the water, dripping and silent, and fired twice. The first sniper dropped. He worked the bolt, shifted aim, and fired again before the second could fully react. 11 snipers, 11 confirmed kills. But the story didn't end there. As George collected his brass, he heard voices. Japanese infantry, a patrol drawn by the gunfire. He was trapped in the crater again as at least 6 soldiers closed in, having found his tracks in the mud. With a bolt-action rifle and only a handful of rounds, the situation was dire. In a frantic, close-range engagement, George fought his way out, killing 3 more Japanese soldiers before breaking contact and sprinting back to American lines. He reported to Captain Morris, mud-caked and exhausted, his ammunition nearly depleted. The Point Cruz groves, which had claimed 14 American lives in 3 days, had been cleared in less than 4 days by 1 man and his rifle. The impact was immediate and profound. The battalion commander, Colonel Ferry, had one question for George. Can you teach others to do what you did? The U.S. Army, an institution built on standardization, had been shown the undeniable value of a specialist. George was given a new mission: form and train the regiment's first official sniper section. He was provided with 14 Marine-donated Springfield '03 rifles equipped with unertl scopes and 40 expert marksmen from the regiment. George, the man who had been ordered to leave his rifle in his tent, was now the architect of the 132nd's new precision warfare capability. His training was rigorous and based on hard-won experience. He taught them not just to shoot, but to breathe, to wait, to use the terrain, and to operate in 2-man teams. The results were staggering. In their first deployment, George's nascent sniper section killed 23 Japanese soldiers in a single day, with 0 casualties. By the time the Guadalcanal campaign ended, his section had tallied 74 confirmed kills, systematically dismantling Japanese resistance in the American operational areas. The value of the trained sniper, equipped with a scoped rifle, was no longer a theory. It was a battle-proven fact. George's war was far from over. He later volunteered for and served with incredible distinction in one of the most grueling units of the entire war, Merrill's Marauders, the legendary long-range penetration group that fought its way through hundreds of miles of brutal Burmese jungle. He carried his Winchester there too, though the nature of the fighting, close-range ambushes in dense vegetation, limited its use. He was wounded by a Japanese rifleman, but recovered. The Marauders' campaign was a testament to human endurance, and George survived it. After the war, John George became a scholar, earning degrees from Princeton and Oxford and becoming a respected authority on African affairs at the State Department. But he never forgot the lessons of Guadalcanal. In 1947, he published a book titled Shots Fired in Anger, a seminal, brutally honest technical account of his combat experiences that remains a classic text on World War II small arms and sniping. He had proven that a civilian marksman with the right tool and the right training could have a disproportionate impact on the modern battlefield. He lived to see sniping evolve into the formal military specialty it is today. And he watched as the lessons he helped learn were institutionalized. John George passed away in 2009 at the age of 90. His Winchester Model 70, the mail-order sweetheart, the toy, the weapon that changed the minds of an entire army, now resides in the National Firearms Museum. It sits quietly in its case, an unassuming hunting rifle with an extraordinary secret history. It is a permanent memorial to the power of individual skill, courage, and the unwavering belief that one man with the right tool can make all the difference in the world. If this story of courage, skill, and a refusal to give up moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube's algorithm that these forgotten stories are worth sharing and helps us rescue more heroes like John George from the dusty pages of history. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already. We are dedicated to bringing these narratives of real people, real heroism, back to life. And I want to hear from you. Our community is what makes this possible. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our audience spans the globe. Tell us if you had a family member who served in the Pacific, or if John George's story of proving them all wrong resonated with you. Just let me know you're out there. You are not just a passive viewer. You are a vital part of keeping this memory alive. You are the reason these men will not be forgotten. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your engagement. Now, let's get the next generation of history preserved. Like, subscribe, and comment below. We'll see you in the next video. If this story of courage, skill, and a refusal to give up moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube's algorithm that these forgotten stories are worth sharing and helps us rescue more heroes like John George from the dusty pages of history. But this mission to preserve history needs you on the front lines. By hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications, you're enlisting in our unit. You'll be the first to know when we unveil our next documentary deep dive into the untold stories of World War II. We have a massive archive of heroism waiting to be shared, from the sands of Iwo Jima to the skies over Berlin, and we don't want you to miss a single one. Now, I need intelligence from the field. Our community is what makes this possible. Drop a comment right now and tell me your mustering point. Where are you watching from? The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Let that map of our community light up. Tell me if you had a family member who served in the Pacific, or if John George's story of proving them all wrong resonated with you. Just let me know you're out there. You are not just a passive viewer. You are a vital part of keeping this legacy alive. You are the reason these men will not be forgotten. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your engagement. Now, let's get the next generation of history preserved. Like, subscribe, and comment below. We'll see you in the next video.